Join palms and bow. The four great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Welcome. Today, we are going to talk about the chant practice of mind looking at mind. It has a name in Chinese. It's Kanxin, Kanxin. I'm definitely not pronouncing it right, but that's the name for the Chinese speakers. So, before we get into that practice, a little bit of a background. And this practice comes to us from the fourth patriarch Daoxin, but it's been written about by a Chan master called Heishang Mohayan. His name is also sometimes spelled Huashang Mahayana, and this master was. From what we can gather, at least from what some scholars can now gather, probably studied under both the northern and southern schools of Chan, under both the Shen Shui as well as Shen Shui's school, as well as Huineng's descendant, Shen Hui. Apparently, from what scholars can deduce, he has studied from both lineages. So, here's what he says about why we practice. The root of the worldly cycle of birth and death is a conceptualizing mind. Why is this? The movement of the conceptual mind is due to imprints that have always been present. You perceive in accordance with this movement, act in accordance with how you perceive, and achieve results in accordance with how you act. Thus, everything from the heights of Buddhahood to the depths of hell is projected by your own concepts, and that's all you ever see. On the other hand, if this mind does not arise, and when he says this mind, he's talking about the afflicted mind, klishta manas. If this mind does not arise, then it is impossible to hold on to as much as an atom of ordinary phenomena. So the reason for practice is that this conceptualizing mind, this klishta manas, is what leads us to perceive things a particular way, and how we perceive impacts how we act, and how we act impacts the results that we receive. So the cycle of causation, dependent arising, is set off by this conceptualizing mind. So that's why we practice, so that we can get out of being a slave, if you will, to this conceptualizing mind. And in preparation for this method of Kanxin, mind looking at mind, mind gazing at mind, I think a great preparation is the direct contemplation method. And direct contemplation, as Shifu Master Shingen describes it, direct contemplation is completely objective. You do not contemplate based on past experience or ideas. You just observe. Whatever you see, you see. Whatever you hear, you hear. That's all. And you can see here that what he's talking about is the direct contemplation is completely objective. And what we heard from Heishang Mohayan is that the problem is the subjective bias we bring to everything. That's the klishta manas, the conceptualizing mind. That's a subjective bias. So direct contemplation takes us out of that subjective bias by really emphasizing the objective. So you just contemplate what is in front of you visually or what you hear, and you contemplate, and you do not bring in the past, your past experience or ideas, and you just stick to, if you're seeing, whatever you're seeing, if you're hearing, whatever you're hearing. And Master Shingen says that there are three things you should not do in direct contemplation. You don't name the object, you don't describe it, you don't compare it with anything. Simple. And more important than these three rules is the overarching, what is this direct contemplation? He says, you do not put any subjective ideas into your observation. No, nothing subjective. So you don't make it about you. Now, this seems a lot simpler than it actually is, because the way you see is colored by subjectivity. So and you discover this as you practice direct contemplation. Layers and layers of you will come up, and you just let it go. You just let it go, because that's not what you're contemplating. So it's even though you're just sticking to the objective, the subjective comes up. How can it not? So the subjective comes up, but you let go of the subjective, you let go of the subjective, and you just stick with the objective. So that's what's going on. You just stick with the object of your contemplation. So let's just try this for a bit. And so just like look around you and find an object. It could be just one object, or it could be like a broad-based, your entire field of vision. Either is okay. But it's good to start with some object. And when you're looking, just look. So this is the same instruction actually that the Buddha gave this person. His name was Bahia. And Bahia wanted instructions from the Buddha. And when he came, for whatever reason, the Buddha was reluctant to teach. But he asked 3 times. And the Buddha always, he had a rule that if somebody asks 3 times, he's gonna answer to the extent possible. So he does, and he gave him a teaching. And in this teaching, the main instruction is that when you see, you just see. So in the seeing, there's only the seeing. In the hearing, there's only the hearing. And in the sensing, as in the bodily touch sensations, the bodily sensations, if you will, in the sensing of the bodily sensations, there is only the sensing. And he also goes and say, in the cognizing, there's only the cognizing. So whatever thoughts and images come up, it's just that. But today we are only going to do direct contemplation with external objects. So just seeing or hearing, but let's try the just seeing. And so in the seeing, just the seeing, and pick an object. And when you're looking, just look. Thoughts and images are going to come up. That is a natural functioning of the mind. Just don't follow them. Just come back to just the seeing. And these thoughts and images may be about something else. Then it's very easy to say that, hey, this is not about what I'm seeing. But it could also be about this thing that you're looking at. So be very discerning and simply stick with seeing what is in front of you and just seeing. Let's give that a shot. It's going to be a very short meditation. Okay. All right, that was just 2 minutes. But that 2 minutes should have been enough time for things to come up that are not about the object, that are about you. Yes? So anybody had anything? Anybody had a session where they didn't have a thought that was about themselves? When they didn't have an attraction, an aversion, um, ignorance in terms of like wanting to blank out, scattered thoughts, right? These things do come up. Yeah. So the instructions are very, very simple, but not necessarily easy. So this is a good, it's a very rich practice. It's a simple practice, but it's very rich because as you just keep seeing what you're just seeing, and in the seeing, there's only the seeing. There's so much that comes up, and if you're practicing right, it comes up and it goes away. And in that, there is a quieting. And this is what Bodhidharma, a quieting of the conceptual mind. And this is what Bodhidharma talked about. He used this term in Chinese. The term is Anxin. Again, I apologize. I'm not pronouncing the tones properly. It's Anxin, Anxin, which is quieting the mind. So, and he had one practice. It's called wall gazing. So just like you were looking at a particular object, what Bodhidharma recommended was sitting, turning, and facing the wall, and just looking at the wall. Now, at least you had an object that had something interesting about it. It had a shape, it had a color, so it gave you something to look at. Well, if you're just looking at the wall, if you're just gazing at the wall is blank. Yeah, there may be some, some surface differences and things like that, but the wall is blank. So you don't even have like, oh, it is this shape and it's this color to kind of keep you interested and kind of distracted from all of the subjectivities that come up. So but it is a very effective practice, and it is still practiced today in the Japanese Zen traditions. That they have wall gazing as part of their, in any retreat that they have, most of their sitting will be facing the wall. So still practice. It's not, we don't practice it in Chan so much, but it's still practiced, and this was a way that Bodhidharma, this was a practice that the Bodhidharma recommended in order to quiet the conceptual mind. So, and in this, he, in his treatise on 2 entrances and 4 practices, he says, if one rejects the false and reverts to the real, and in a coagulated state abides in wall examining. So if one rejects the false and reverts to the real. So here, when you're doing a direct contemplation, you're rejecting anything other than the object that you're looking at. And in this particular method, the real is whatever you're seeing is what you're seeing. And in a coagulated state, that's a way of saying that it's a collected state. The Sanskrit words that are used for a coagulated state is either ekagrata or samadhi. It's a collected state. It's not like scattered, if you will. In a coagulated state, abides in wall examining. Then, and wall examining, the Chinese is biguan. Then self and other, common man and sage are identical. Firmly abiding without shifting, in no way following after the written teachings, this is mysteriously tallying with principle. So he's saying, like, you don't have to study the Dharma and think about the Dharma. You just do this. Then self and other will not be different anymore. Okay. And this is tallying with this is according. I've seen the word according used in other translations. This is according with principle, and according, like I mentioned in the last lecture, according is for me, it's such a word that's a magic word. It's a turning phrase. It's a turning word. This is according. This is according. That's it. This is according with principle. It is non-discriminative, quiescent, and inactive. We call this entrance by principle. So quiescent here is the silence of silent illumination, the inactivity, the quiescence, the non-discriminative. You have to really know the background so that you don't mistake that for something else. So for example, quiescent here means that the conceptualizing mind is quiet and inactive. And non-discriminative here means that self and other fall away, that separation falls away. So that's what this means. It doesn't mean that you're not discriminating against, is in the seeing, there's only the seeing. Are you clear about it? You are clear about it. It's not that there's no clarity about that. It's not that kind of a non-discriminative, and it's not quiescent in that, oh, just like suppress thoughts. It's not that kind of a quiescent. It's a quiescence and inactivity of the conceptualizing mind that is polluting, if you will, and it is non-discriminative in that there is no difference between self and other. So these are instructions to enter true nature. And let's see here what so entering true nature, this is the commentary from Carmen Meinert, who talks about Heishang Mohayan's Kanxin, or mind gazing at mind, and the history behind it. So she says that entering true nature is here symbolized in wall examination. So she says that in an earlier Chinese compilation, there's commentary that says that Bodhidharma's wall gazing was a core of his teachings, and that quieting mind is wall examining. So this wall gazing was a really core part of the practice, and that the intent of that was this anshin, or quieting the conceptualizing mind. Quieting the mind is pointing directly to the nature of mind, which is beyond any limits of discrimination. This boundlessness of mind, of the absolute, is in Chan terminology expressed in the paradoxical phrase, mind is no mind. So in a different work attributed to Bodhidharma, this is the explanation for what no mind is. Because mind, this is Bodhidharma, because mind is no mind, it's called Dharma mind. Today's practitioners understand this as a destruction of all delusions. Mind is like space, indestructible, and therefore it is called the adamantine mind. Adamantine is a translation of Vajra, diamond. It's a diamond mind. Mind does not abide in abiding, nor does it abide in non-abiding. And therefore, it is called the mind of prajna. The mind nature is broad and great. Its operation is directionless. Therefore, we call it the Mahayana mind. Let me read that to you again. Mind is like space, indestructible, and therefore it is called the adamantine, diamond, vajra mind. Mind does not, and the word vajra mind is also used in the Platform Sutra by Huineng. Mind does not abide in abiding, nor does it abide in non-abiding, and therefore it is called the mind of prajna. The mind nature is broad and great. Its operation is directionless. So you can see here that there's no abiding, either in abiding or in non-abiding. And the mind's nature is broad and great. Its operation is directionless. So this points to the free-flowing nature of mind. The mind substance is penetrating without obstacles, unimpeded, and therefore it is called the Bodhi mind, penetrating without obstacles, unimpeded. Mind has no bounds. It is not localized. Because mind is without characteristics, it does not have limits. As it operates without defect, it is not unlimited. It does not have bounds, nor is it unbounded, and therefore it is called the mind of the reality bound. So from this, Carmen Minor is now talking. The absolute is not merely defined by the aspect of emptiness, but also by the aspect of knowing. So it's empty knowing. And this is evident in the description here of no mind as the mind of prajna. So prajna is jna means knowing, and pra is, there's two different ways you can interpret it. That's both useful. One is that it's primary in that it's the original knowing. And original as before knowing is clouded by the afflictive mind, afflictive consciousness. And primary as in the most important way of knowing. So this was Bodhidharma saying that, hey, this method of wall gazing, which you can take as a type of direct contemplation, what is the point of it? And what is the immediate effect of it is the quieting of the conceptualizing mind, Klishta-manas. And the full fruition of it is that realization of true nature, that mind is no mind, that it has all of these qualities that are not qualities that we just talked about. So that there's the emptiness and the knowing, that both are, that the absolute is not merely defined by the aspect of emptiness, but also by the aspect of knowing, because no mind is the mind of prajna. So with that, now we come to the fourth patriarch, Daoshin. So Daoshin, where Bodhidharma was the first patriarch, followed by Huike, followed by Sengsan, and then we have Daoshin. And Daoshin, what he does is he develops this anshin, or this quieting of the mind that Bodhidharma taught, into a specific meditation practice of Kanxin, which can be translated as gazing at mind, or just mind looking at mind. It's just mind looking at mind, just looking at mind. So so Daoshin interprets Anshin. Anshin is a quieting of the mind as an expedient means, and therefore a unified mindfulness that is to be maintained without deviation. Daoshin actually relates 4 specific means of meditation. So he says, hey, Anshin is an expedient means. It's a way to develop this unified mindfulness so that you learn how to simply pay attention without deviation, without moving away from the object. I mean, we did this for 2 minutes, right? I mean, we did the direct contemplation, visual contemplation of this visual objects for 2 minutes. And in that 2 minutes, did your attention just stay on that object? No, it didn't. I mean, at least none of you said that it did. So it didn't. So there's a lot of value in doing that. It may not be the most advanced meditation technique there is, but there's a lot of value, and that's why he's saying it's expedient means to develop this unified mindfulness that is to be maintained without deviation. And then he talks about Daoshin, talks about 4 different types of meditation. He says, one, you can cultivate the body, meaning that you can meditate on the body. That's body scanning, body awareness of the body. And then 2, a method to maintain unified mindfulness without deviation. And that could be what he just talked about with the direct contemplation of the wall. A method to truly contemplate body and mind. So it's not just the body, but also the mind. So you could do the same direct contemplation with both body and with mind. For example, in the Buddha's instructions to Bahia, he says, in the seeing, there's only the seeing. In the hearing, there's only the hearing. In the sensing of the body, there is only the sensing. And in the cognizing, there is only the cognizing. So I would say that the seeing and the hearing are the ones that are like highlighted in direct contemplation. But direct contemplation, the same method can be applied to just body awareness of the body. There, whatever you're sensing in the body, that's all there is. It's not about you. It's not about you. It's harder, isn't it? It'll be harder because the body we think is all about us. So, but in the sensing, there can be only the sensing. So that's a practice. So that's a practice that's a little harder than just say looking at a bell and just say, just the bell, just the bell. It's not about me, not about me, just the bell, right? Without all of those words, I'm just trying to dramatize this here. So, but if you're doing this with the body, for you to just say the body, whatever sensations that arise, it's just that. And when you do it with the body, then what happens is that you discover even more how many things have been, kind of created out of thin air. Like, for example, the body, we assume that the body has a shape. Every moment, do we actually sense that it has a shape? Or is it just an assumption? You examine it for yourself. If you are just, if in the sensing there's only the sensing, where is this idea of the body having a shape coming from? So, so the body with sensing, in the body sensing, there's only the body sensing is more difficult. In the cognizing, there's only the cognizing is even more difficult, because if we assume that the body is me, we assume even more that my mind, I'm talking about what we think of as my mind, is me. So it's like, I'm so like distracted today, right? There's distraction. The mind, the personal, the mind is just tending, the personal mind is just tending towards looking at this and looking at that, not being able to stay with that without deviation that Daoshin talks about, right? So that's what's being in the cognizing, there is the cognizing. However, there's so much, we take so much ownership about the cognizing that it is a lot more challenging to just say in the cognizing, there's just cognizing. So, but you can do that. So that's what Daoshin is talking about here, that you could just attend to the body. You could attend to an external object like visual sounds. You could do this with both body and mind. And then the fourth method he talks about, he says a method to gaze at mind, Kanxin. So that Daoshin talks about Kanxin. And this Kanxin, for Daoshin, the expedient means of gazing at mind is the ultimate method, which leads to the sudden realization of original mind. So this is Daoshin. He develops what Bodhidharma had into this method called Kanxin. And then we come to Heishan Mohayan or Huashang Mahayana, who really, well, I don't know if he's developed this. Perhaps he has. Perhaps he has developed this, because there is some scholarship that says that that he actually studied under both the northern and southern schools of Chan, and he pulled both together, because he does talk about the gradual cultivation, and he talks about the instant. He used, at least in the translation, the word used is instantaneous awakening. So that sudden awakening. So the method that Heshang Mohayan recommends is this instantaneous awakening method. That's the one that he is advocating for, if you will. And what Mohayan is saying is, why do we practice the same thing that I started the class with, but in slightly different words? He says sentient beings are bound to samsara due to habitual tendencies, and the Chinese word is shi qi, of concepts and discrimination. So sentient beings are bound to samsara due to the habitual tendencies of concepts of discrimination. These habitual tendencies hinder their original omniscience. These habitual tendencies hinder their original omniscience. So remember when I talked to you about what prajna means, that prajna is primary knowing, that it's the original knowing. So what he's talking about here is that our habitual tendencies are what clouds that it hinders the original omniscience. Omniscience is the way the Buddha knows, and I talked about this in a couple of lectures past, that omniscience is the wisdom of the Buddha. And so he says that our Buddha mind, the way to interpret this is, our habitual tendencies cloud over our Buddha mind. Enlightenment, however, is achieved by non-attachment with respect to those deluded thoughts, regardless of whether they arise or not. So he's saying awakening. I prefer the word awakening. Awakening is achieved by non-attachment with respect to those deluded thoughts, regardless of whether they arise or not. So the problem is not whether, distractions arise. So when you're looking at the object that you are looking at, distractions arise. That is not the problem. Awakening is achieved by non-attachment with respect to those deluded thoughts. So this is an instruction right here. So when you're practicing direct contemplation, it's not a problem if thoughts arise about something else, about you, about something else, which is eventually about you. The only thing to do is to practice non-attachment with respect to those thoughts that are extraneous that come up. When the practitioner becomes aware of their arising without grasping or abiding in them, each thought is liberation and prajna. When the practitioner becomes aware of their arising without grasping or abiding in them, each thought is liberation and prajna. So that's all you need to do. That's all you need to do. You could be doing direct contemplation, and whatever thought that comes up, that's all you need to do. Aware of the arising without grasping or abiding in them, then each thought is liberation and prajna. So now we are going to go into Huashang Mahayana's instructions on Kanxin. And here is the instruction that I'm going to guide you into it. And this is from his work. It's called Ratification of the True Principle. Having reversed mind's 6 faculties so that they do not engage in deluded objects, one gazes at one's own mind and realizes that it has no reality whatsoever. Therefore, nothing is to be thought of, because afflictions are not being minded, so nothing is to be conceptualized. In this way, the objects of mind are completely purified and there is nothing to abide in. Okay, so there's nothing to abide in by turning inward. So this first step here is about turning the mind's eye inward, away from the objects of the six faculties, sense faculties. So more on that. Turning attention away from the sensory impressions of the 6 gates: sight, hearing, touch, smell, taste, and manas, or mental consciousness, and towards the mind that remains in the absence of the senses. And there's some background of where this is coming from. In the Chinese version of the same work, the Ratification, this practice of turning away is introduced in a quote from the Maha-Ushnisha Sutra, which states that once a single sense faculty is returned to its source, all 6 are liberated. So that's your encouragement. If a single sense faculty is returned to its source, all 6 are liberated. So let's do this first. So then, the first step is turning the mind's eye inward. So go ahead and look at whatever the object was that you were looking at before. So you're looking, and for just a few seconds in the looking, let there only be the looking. Now turn back from that object and look at what is looking. What is it that is aware of this object? You can call it mind. What is the mind that is aware of this object? Or you don't need to call it mind. What is aware? What is it that knows this object? What is it to be aware of what is aware? To know what is knowing. To attend to what is attending. To mind what is minding. Okay? All right. How did that go? Did that did you get what I was trying to point at? Turning the mind's eye inward, mind looking at mind, knowing the knowing, minding the minding, being aware of what is aware. Somebody? Robert?
Yeah, it's kind of where
Mm-hmm.
it's like looking. It's almost like constant question mark as what is that is
Mm-hmm.
watching. I mean, I know I'm looking at my candy, but who is watching? Who is looking at the candy, and who is looking at who is looking? So it's
Yeah.
like endless mirror.
Yes,
It's
yes,
like
yes,
endless question and
yes,
endless mirror. It's like
yes.
it draws you, and this is weird.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, it is self-recursive, like we would say it in technical speak. Um, right? And like those analogies were wonderful. And that's the point of this. It is to absorb you into the non-distinction between self and other eventually, if you keep progressing here. So Mohayan has more to say on this. Let me get to some more of this. Thank you, Robert. So when you do this, when you look, when mind is looking at mind like this, Kanxin, the instructions here are to do this without getting involved in judging or analyzing. So if you're judging and analyzing, that's not what this is about. This is simply mind looking at mind. So since nothing exists there, they have no thoughts. The practitioner has no thoughts. If conceptual thoughts move, they should experience them. How should we experience them? Whatever thoughts arise should not be designated as moving or not moving. They should not be designated as existing or not existing. They should not be designated as virtuous or non-virtuous. They should not be designated as afflicted or pure. They should not be designated as any kind of phenomenon at all. If the movement of mind is experienced in this way, it has no nature. This is called practicing the Dharma path. So what he's pointing to here is a direct contemplation of mind. This is an elaboration of what the Buddha meant when he said, in the cognizing, there is only the cognizing. Okay, so this is that's what this is. This is the direct contemplation of mind. Here, Mohayan complements the repeated negations in his meditation instructions with positive language about the illuminating function of mind. Rather than suppressing the mind's movement, he advocates instead a form of experience without analysis. And the author here, this is from a book called Tibetan Zen, and the author here is saying that the word that is used in that text, the translation in Chinese is jue. And jue means experiencing, apparently. And in Sanskrit, that this word can stand for the Sanskrit word Vedana, which is feeling or sensation, which is one of the 12 links of dependent arising, and also a part of the five skandhas. So Not moving into, if you look at the five skandhas, you have form, sensation, and then perception. So not moving into perception. And I think earlier there was about not perceiving, right? So not moving into perception, but staying with the Vedana, with just the, if you will, Vedana is the sensation that happens on impingement of an object arising. When the object arises, there's Vedana. So just that, just stay with that, just stay with the raw sensation of whatever the object is, visual, auditory, mind, cognizing, the cognizing. Just stay with that. Peel off the layers of perception, if you will, and never mind going into mental formations that result from that perception. Earlier we talked about how the way we perceive is clouded by our afflicted consciousness, klishta manas, and from which comes activity. And part of that activity is a mental formations. That's the fourth skandha. So don't go into all of that. Just stay with the sensation, the form sensation. That's it. Just stay with that. This is another way of talking about what this direct contemplation is. But here, the direct contemplation is directly contemplating mind itself. Okay. In Zen literature, the meaning of jue is more positive, and where jue refers to a clear and correct form of awareness. So this, in other words, it's not just Vedana, it's a way of attending that is unclouded by subjectivity, by perceptions, mental, never mind mental formations, and the birth of afflicted consciousness. None of that. Just stay with the experiencing itself. It's a basic state of awareness that is neither positive or negative in itself. Okay, so it's not, let's, one moment, let me see if I can get to. So the suppression of mental movement and the state of resting in peace are inferior as compared to allowing whatever phenomena to arise, where each thought is liberated as soon as it comes, where each thought is liberated as soon as it comes. Thus, Mohayan says, thus, do not suppress discrimination. Do not correct anything that arises, like throwing away something unpleasant. Let it subside on its own. Let it subside on its own. Do not chase after it. Okay, do not chase it. Let it subside on its own. It's liberated just by that. And he says that if you practice like this, the result of that practice is that the practice is exemplified. Like you could practice the 6 paramitas one at a time. And he says that the practices exemplified by the 6 perfections are necessary for those who do not have the capability to see the nature of mind immediately. For those who can, the 6 perfections are not abandoned, but arise naturally out of the state of meditation. But he says there's a requirement for using this as a method. And he says this meditation requires effort in cultivating faith in the greater vehicle, Mahayana, and belief that all phenomena are only mind. So the Yogacharans, Chittamatra, the faith in Mahayana and in a faith in mind only. So that's if you will, the preparation for entering this method. And then you're just minding mind looking at mind. And this is a right view. This is a right view that all phenomena are only mind, including the self, your idea of who is looking, not who is looking, not what is looking. What is looking is mind, but your idea of who's looking is this you, that even that is mind only. That is also a phenomena that's mind only. So this view is a requirement for this practice, because only with this view is it even possible to allow phenomena to arise and not to try to kind of discard it and to say that, hey, this is bad. Oh no, this thought has come up. Nope, no, none of that. Super simple. Super simple. Do not correct anything that arises, like as though you're throwing away something unpleasant. That's the instruction. Do not correct anything that arises, like throwing away something unpleasant. Let it subside on its own. Let it subside on its own. To do that, you need right view. To do that, you have to have faith in Mahayana and faith in mind only, and belief in mind only. So then you can hold everything that arises. You know that whatever arises is going to appear and then it's going to cease. And that just happens. So it gets liberated on its own. And including the you, your idea of who is looking. And so he says that this is a meditation in which there is no dualism between awareness or wisdom, and its object. So this is, in other teachings, Gilbert's talked about in the Buddha Nature Treatise, there's this concept of ruja, which is the thusness that is looking, if you will, that is knowing, more knowing. And then rujing, which is what the element, the dhatu, that is known. That's the thusness of what is known. That these two are just ru, which is just thusness, just suchness. They are not two. That's where this is pointing to. And he calls this the instantaneous practice. And he says, in instantaneous practice, all external appearances are understood to be merely mind. And the internal mind is nothing more than imagination with mistaken concepts. When you have become proficient in non-substantiality, you can maintain these two as emptiness. This is not, however, the non-existence of each and everything. The Buddha of reality itself transcends arising and cessation without ever changing. The intrinsic awareness of this instantaneously purifies all appearances from inside out without falling back. And he says, this only takes a short time. So he's saying this is a short cut to practice. So right view, turning the mind's light inward, and not interfering with what comes up, allowing whatever comes up to arise, abide, and cease on its own. This is the shortcut. This is the instantaneous practice of Kanxin, mind looking at mind, mind gazing at mind. All right, that's the material for today, and I'll take questions. And interesting aside for the two Tamil speakers on the call, that kan means look, and it's very similar to the Tamil word kan. Hey Weishang.
Thank you, Sentha.
Hi, Sentha.
Hey Weishang.
Thank you for the lecture. In your lecture, you mentioned the word prajna not means knowing, and the praj had two meanings, but I only got one,
Oh, it's
which is the
primary.
primary.
I said it's primary, but primary as in it is the original. There are two meanings to primary, that it's original and it is prime or the most important.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
It's
So,
important. It's primary means that it's the first among everything else.
okay.
So it's both. It's pointing to the original knowing, and that it's the most important way of knowing.
That's the two meaning.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Jake.
Hi, Sentha. I wanted to ask about direct contemplation.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the challenges that I've always had with it is that as you're sort of engaging in that practice, you're seeing something, and like as such, it's kind of that object is passing through your perceptions and somehow getting filtered through a lens of subjectivity. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that like that's always kind of made me feel like I'm doing it wrong, because I think the logical endpoint of that is that the object is empty, there is no object, and it's hard to like apart from your perception of it.
Yes.
And I've always kind of felt like I was doing it wrong, but in the way that you introduced it today, saying like, you know, you start to see the layers of the self and the layers of this like self's perception, are these kind of the things to sort of let them come up and pass, and that's kind of
Yes,
like a natural thing
absolutely.
that
Yeah.
happens? Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That reoriented me a lot towards how to think about direct contemplation and practice it. So
Excellent.
I think that's really helpful for me.
Okay. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you.
Ramakrishnan?
Thank you, Santha. It was quite interesting. Can you please share the list of titles and the authors that you referred to?
Yes. Yeah, I will do that.
Thank you.
One is an article, and let me find that. And another is a book. The book is called Tibetan Zen. And the article, I'll have to find it. Give me a moment. Ernest.
Thank you, Sentha. That plus last week has really, really helped me a lot. Gilbert talks a lot about resting, resting while mind looks at mind. And then in Shifu's book on the method of no method, he talks about the, shamatha vipassana. So the shamatha is like the stillness, the quietude. So the rest is, my question is the rest simply what has been described tonight with a little bit more?
So the rest is staying without effort. You could take that as the definition of rest. Staying without effort. And there's also in rest a regenerative recovery aspect of what a relief it is not to be blown away by the conceptualizing mind. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Hi,
And
Sentha.
I posted the name of the article in the chat. And hi, Arvind.
Hi. When in direct contemplation,
Mm-hmm.
as you let things arise and go,
Mm-hmm.
there is sometimes there is a sense of going into an understanding or a depth, but something that is further away from the observed six senses. But that moment, the thinking about the suchness of everything feels like bringing that balance back to the middle somehow. And I've always, it's a
Okay,
sensation.
pause just a bit. So
Yeah.
you let that thought go as well.
Mm,
You let that thought go as not that it is not. It's not as though any of this is not valuable or whatever. It's not. We are not judging that thought either, but you just let it pass as well.
mm. Okay.
But go ahead.
No, that actually answered my question. Because I sometimes I feel like in doing direct contemplation, there is a sense of, oh, I'm going deeper into understanding something,
Mm-hmm.
and a sense of that understanding being different from the normal senses that we experience and observe.
Yeah.
And then right at that moment, the more, I mean, from the sutras reading and reflection, there's that alarm that goes off, like everything is suchness,
Mm-hmm.
like a jerk back into, like, this is what it is,
Mm-hmm.
just as it is.
Yeah.
So I was just curious to
So
ask
any
you.
any judging. So do not correct anything that arises, like throwing away something unpleasant. Like
Right.
do not cherish something that arises, like holding on to something pleasant. That's
Mm,
the flip side of this. Which is not to say that your insight is not useful. It'll come back after.
mm,
So for now, you just like let it go.
okay.
So if in this process everything falls away and that there is just the Buddha mind, right?
Mm,
Don't worry about it.
mm,
It's not,
yeah.
I would say that thinking that you might throw away, I don't know how you could
Hmm.
make a sentence out of that, but let's
Right.
just say thinking that you might throw away the real deal,
Hmm.
don't cherish the unreal deals that arise.
No, that makes complete sense. Thank you.
All right. Hey, Tori.
I just want to make a comment that recently I watched some videos by a 法师, and his
Mhm.
name is 境界法师. And he was talking about the consciousness, the first five, and then the
Mhm.
sixth, and then the seventh, the
And
eighth.
8th. Mhm.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna use now. I know they have like actual names, but like
Yeah,
names
yeah.
so
The 7th is the Klishta Manas that I was talking about.
yeah, and that's the seven is the ego, right? So
Well, ego is one, ego is like there's a lot of baggage when it comes to the word ego because
so
because
those
ego comes
concepts,
from psychos. Of course, you know about this story. You know about what ego is. So there's ego has a certain meaning in the psychotherapy tradition. You could use it colloquially.
oh yeah.
Yeah, for the 7th, but
I guess I'm
maybe
trying
not.
to say the conceptual minds that attached to concepts.
Yes.
And I think Arvin,
Mhm.
I guess what we're trying to let go is all the concepts, they're coming by, and just they come and go, and just let them float by. And so we're not essentially gonna let go. Is the function of the mind, right? So it's the sixth consciousness that we're using as in doing the contemplation.
We are using like what all consciousnesses are active. If you're looking at a visual object, the visual consciousness is active. And if there's a thought arising, the sixth consciousness is what is aware of the thought that is arising.
Right. The cognizing, that's what you were talking about, the cognizing, the pure.
That's in the cognizing, there's just the cognizing is a direct contemplation of the sixth consciousness.
Yeah. So that we're not going to throw away that, right? So
you're not throwing that away, and there is is the consciousness a thing that may get thrown away? Is that me? That may get not thrown away. That may arise, abide, and cease.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Is that me? That's me. This is the way I think. Those things. Allow them to arise, abide, and cease.
Thank you.
Okay. Welcome. Anybody else? All right. Thank you so much, everybody.